The challenge had been issued, a declaration of superiority broadcast across the galaxy. The alien king, towering and arrogant, had declared humanity weak, calling them cowards unworthy of existence. His message, delivered with the pomp and bluster of a conqueror, reverberated through human space, igniting a mix of fear and defiance. Most would have called it a hopeless fight, an empire spanning hundreds of worlds against a single planet still reeling from earlier battles. But amidst the fear, one soldier stepped forward. He wasn't chosen by a council or appointed by a committee. There was no grand ceremony or speech to rally the troops. This was a decision made by a single individual, one human who refused to let the insult go unanswered. He volunteered not out of bravado but from a quiet, unwavering sense of duty. When asked why, he simply said, "Someone has to show them what we're made of." The Alien King's arena was a spectacle of intimidation, a vast coliseum carved into the heart of an asteroid, suspended in a starless void. Its jagged walls pulsed with an unnatural light, symbols of alien dominance etched into every surface. Surrounding it, rows of alien spectators gathered, their grotesque forms writhing in anticipation. They didn't see this as a battle. They saw it as entertainment, a foregone conclusion where their king would crush a hapless human and reaffirm their rule over the galaxy. Human leadership had debated sending anyone at all. To accept the challenge was to risk humiliation, but to decline would confirm the king's accusations. They eventually relented, but it wasn't their decision that mattered. The soldier had already made up his mind. He didn't care about politics or propaganda. This wasn't about proving humanity's worth to the galaxy. It was about standing up to a bully. He arrived alone, piloting a small, unassuming craft that was dwarfed by the alien fleet surrounding the arena. The king had promised safe passage, though the soldier knew better than to trust it. Yet he walked off his ship without hesitation, his figure dwarfed by the massive gates leading into the coliseum. Clad in a simple combat suit and carrying a standard-issue rifle, he looked almost laughable compared to the grandeur of the arena and the overwhelming presence of the king. The alien king awaited him at the center of the arena, his massive frame radiating power and confidence. His armor gleamed, its edges adorned with symbols of his countless victories. His weapon, an enormous halberd crackling with alien energy, rested lightly in one hand as if it weighed nothing. When the soldier stepped into the light, the king laughed, a deep, resonating sound that made the alien spectators join in mockery. "So, this is humanity's champion," the king bellowed, his voice amplified by some unseen technology. "This pathetic creature is all your species could muster? A coward hiding behind weak armor and primitive tools." The soldier didn't respond. He didn't rise to the bait or give the king the satisfaction of a retort. Instead, he simply stood there, calm and resolute, his rifle held loosely but ready. The silence was jarring, a stark contrast to the king's bombastic taunts. The audience, expecting a plea for mercy or a desperate show of bravado, fell quiet as they realized this human wasn't afraid. "You won't even speak," the king sneered, his amusement giving way to irritation. "Very well. I will show you and your kind why resistance is futile. I will make an example of you, and when you fall, your species will know its place." The soldier shifted his stance slightly, his eyes never leaving the king. His movements were deliberate, precise, and devoid of wasted energy. To the alien spectators, it might have seemed insignificant, but to those who had fought beside him on Earth, it was a familiar sign. This wasn't a man who sought glory or recognition. This was a professional, someone who had trained for years, not to win accolades but to survive and protect others. The king raised his halberd high, the weapon glowing brighter as it charged with energy. "Let the galaxy bear witness," he roared. "This is the strength of the apex species, the rulers of the stars." The arena erupted in cheers, the alien crowd feeding off the king's confidence. But the soldier remained unfazed. He watched, waited, and prepared. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a message. Not to the aliens, but to humanity. They needed to see that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they could stand tall. The king charged, his massive frame moving with surprising speed, but the soldier didn't flinch.
He was ready.
The alien king stood in the center of the arena, his colossal frame towering over the sleek metallic battlefield. The arena itself was a masterpiece of alien engineering, an enormous circular platform suspended in the void of space. Strange symbols pulsated along the edges, casting an eerie, shifting glow. Surrounding it were thousands of alien spectators, their grotesque forms writhing in excitement. Their guttural roars filled the air, a cacophony of mockery and bloodlust directed squarely at humanity's lone representative. The soldier stepped forward, his boots clanging softly against the alien alloy beneath him. He carried no ostentatious weapons, no shimmering armor to inspire awe. Clad in a standard combat suit, he held a single weapon, a compact but lethal rail rifle designed for precision. He looked at the alien king, who sneered at him with a mixture of amusement and contempt. "Is this the best your species can muster?" The king jeered, his voice booming across the arena. "A feeble creature with no strength, no power? This will be over before it begins."
The soldier said nothing.
He met the alien king's gaze with a calm, measured expression. There was no fear in his eyes, no hesitation in his stance. The silence unsettled even the spectators, who had expected some plea for mercy or at least a retort. Instead, he simply raised his weapon slightly, his movements deliberate and methodical. The alien king laughed, a deep, guttural sound that echoed like thunder. He raised his massive weapon, a brutal halberd forged from alien alloys that crackled with energy. With a single, fluid motion, he slammed it into the ground, sending shockwaves rippling through the arena. The soldier didn't flinch. The fight began without warning. The alien king lunged forward, his massive frame moving with surprising speed. He swung his halberd in a wide arc, the weapon's edge sparking against the ground as it cut through the air. The soldier ducked, narrowly avoiding the strike, and rolled to the side, his movements precise and calculated. He raised his rifle and fired a single shot. The projectile struck the alien king's shoulder, but his armor absorbed the impact with ease. The king didn't even pause. "Is that all you've got, human?" he roared, charging again. This time, his strike was faster, more aggressive, aiming to crush the soldier outright. The soldier sidestepped, his movements impossibly quick for someone his size. He fired again, this time aiming for a joint in the king's armor. The shot connected, and a faint crack appeared in the plating. The king snarled, more out of annoyance than pain. "You're clever, I'll give you that," he said, his tone dripping with derision. "But cleverness won't save you." The alien king struggled to rise, his massive frame weighed down by his injuries and the growing realization that this human was far more dangerous than anticipated. The crowd, once roaring with confidence, had fallen into an uneasy hush, their belief in their ruler shaken. The soldier stood a few paces away, calm and unflinching, his rifle trained steadily on his opponent. He wasn't rushing, wasn't letting emotion dictate his actions. Every movement was measured, precise, and deliberate. The king growled, wiping dark, viscous blood from his mouth. "You think you're clever, human? You think your tricks and tactics make you my equal? I am a conqueror of worlds, the apex of evolution. You are nothing." The soldier didn't respond, but his silence was louder than any retort. He shifted his stance slightly, his eyes scanning the king for any signs of weakness. The king's left leg dragged slightly, his movements slower and less coordinated. The armor near his torso had been compromised, exposing faintly glowing flesh beneath. Every injury, every weakness was catalogued in the soldier's mind. The king charged again, abandoning finesse in favor of sheer brute force. His movements were wild, fueled by desperation and rage. The soldier held his ground until the last possible moment, then sidestepped with a fluid motion, allowing the king's momentum to carry him forward. A quick pivot and a precise shot from the soldier's rifle struck the exposed joint of the king's shoulder, forcing a roar of pain from the massive alien. "You fight like a coward," the king bellowed, clutching his injured arm. Stand and face me. Show me the strength of your species. You don't understand strength, the soldier replied calmly. It's not about size or power. It's about knowing when and where to strike. The king growled, his glowing eyes narrowing. He reached down to the ground, ripping a piece of the arena floor free and hurling it with terrifying force. The soldier barely managed to dodge, the projectile exploding behind him in a burst of molten debris. He rolled to his feet, unscathed but forced to move more cautiously. The alien spectators began to stir again, their uneasy murmurs rising as their king continued to flail against this seemingly insignificant opponent. Every missed strike, every failed attack chipped away at the myth of the king's invincibility. The soldier reloaded his rifle, his movements quick and practiced. He aimed carefully, targeting the king's exposed weaknesses. Another shot, this time to the knee of the king's injured leg, brought the massive alien down with a crash. The ground trembled beneath his weight, and the king let out a guttural roar that echoed through the arena. "This isn't possible," the king snarled, his voice a mix of disbelief and fury. "I've crushed armies, destroyed civilizations. How can one human do this?" The soldier didn't answer. He advanced steadily, his rifle never wavering. The king tried to rise, but his injuries were too severe. His once imposing figure was now hunched and struggling, his strength waning with each passing moment. "You underestimated us," the soldier said finally, his tone devoid of malice. "You thought we were weak, because we're smaller, because we're fewer. But strength isn't just about power, it's about will. And humans have more of that than you'll ever understand." The king roared again, a final desperate act of defiance. He lunged forward, claws outstretched, but his movements were sluggish, telegraphed. The soldier sidestepped easily, raising his rifle and firing a well-aimed shot into the exposed core of the king's chest. The impact sent the alien king sprawling, his massive body collapsing onto the arena floor. He let out a strangled gasp, his glowing eyes dimming as his life force ebbed away. The crowd fell completely silent, the weight of their king's defeat settling over them like a shroud. The soldier stood over the fallen king, his expression unreadable. He lowered his weapon slowly, watching as the alien ruler took his last, labored breath. There was no triumph in his stance, no celebration in his demeanor, only a quiet resolve, the understanding that this victory had been necessary but costly. For a moment, the arena was still. The alien spectators stared, their grotesque forms frozen in disbelief. Then, one by one, they began to retreat, their faith in their leader shattered. The soldier turned away, his work done, and walked toward the exit without looking back. As the alien king's body lay motionless on the arena floor, the air was thick with an oppressive silence. The alien spectators, who moments before had cheered with unshakable confidence, now stood in stunned disbelief. Their invincible ruler, the conqueror of worlds, had been defeated by a single human. The weight of what they had just witnessed hung heavy in the void. The soldier stood still, his rifle lowered but his posture unwavering. He didn't revel in the moment, didn't turn to the crowd to demand their recognition. Instead, he took a deep breath, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly as he surveyed the arena. Every movement was deliberate, every action carrying the same quiet purpose that had brought him to this point. From the far side of the arena, a low, guttural murmur began to rise among the alien audience. The soldier glanced toward the sound, his sharp eyes reading the shifting emotions on their faces: confusion, anger, and, most prominently, fear. The king's defeat had not just shattered their belief in his invulnerability, it had also planted the seed of doubt in their own supremacy. The murmur grew louder, some of the aliens beginning to retreat into the shadows of the towering structure. A few bolder ones stepped forward, as if testing the boundaries of this new reality. One alien, larger and more grotesque than the others, let out a defiant roar, but it faltered halfway, the sound dying in its throat as the soldier's calm gaze locked onto it. No words were exchanged, yet the alien took a step back, its courage dissolving under the weight of the human's unyielding presence. The soldier took a step forward, his boots echoing in the silence. The crowd parted instinctively, their movements jerky and uncertain. Though the soldier's weapon was lowered, the message was clear. This battle was over. Humanity had proven that it was not to be underestimated, not to be dismissed as weak or cowardly. From the edge of the arena, a crackling sound erupted as a holographic projection came to life. It was the alien coalition's council, their distorted faces flickering in the light. They had been watching, no doubt expecting to celebrate their king's triumph. Now, they looked on in muted shock. The soldier turned to face them, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Your king is dead. Your invasion ends here. Return to your worlds, or face the same fate." One of the council members, a pale, serpentine creature, hissed in anger. "You think one victory changes anything? We will bring our full might down upon your planet. You have accomplished nothing but delaying the inevitable." The soldier's expression didn't change. "Then send your armies. But know this, Earth won't fall quietly. For every human you kill, 10 more will rise to fight. We may not have your numbers or your technology, but we have something you'll never understand: resolve. We don't quit, and we don't stop fighting